Welcome to the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And we are excited because we are riding high on Star Trek PICARD Season 3, and this is EP.05 Imposter. Before we go any further, must give you a little warning here, guys. And I'm going to give it to Raffi to tell you, because she says, spoiler alert! We are going deep into all spoiler territory here, so make sure you have seen the episode and then come back and check us out here. All right, I am going to introduce the rest of my awesome crew here. With me, as always, is our security and weapons officer, also an expert on residue. Please welcome Mr. Wagner Kyle, our honorary Bajoran. How are you?
I was gonna say I'm feeling a little gooey, and I can't decide if it was all the pizza I had for dinner or if it was something else.
Well, glad to have you with us this week. We are very excited because back we have with us our first officer and counselor and extra tan, Miss Amy Nelson. What is up? Woot woot.
Hello, woot woot. You know, sacrifices have to be made, and if I have to go on vacation, then I too will sacrifice.
Yeah, her new name is Amy Vacation Nelson.
Yeah. Well, this week we are discussing Star Trek PICARD, Season 3, Episode 5, The Imposter. And Amy, but before we go any further, I just wanted you to mention you got some other stuff, of course, going on with the BQN here. And I caught part of your live show today with Joe Keegan, where you guys were talking about this episode. But it was really cool, though. You guys are kind of doing a scene-by-scene breakdown. How's things going over at the BQN?
Well, doing great. Yeah, the Galaxy class is now going live in thanks to and by example of Union Fed. It's been so much fun, and we are doing like scene by scene breakdown. Creates a little bit longer of a show. I'm just pointing that out. So be prepared for some lengthy discussions there.
Well, we don't know anything about longer shows, do we, Kevin?
No, not at all. Not at all. But it's fun. It's fun to do the live show, and I gotta tip my hat to Mr. Joe Keegan. He is killing it with the slideshow presentation.
Yes. And again, because he was on Union Fed and he's like, oh my gosh, Kevin does this slideshow. How can we do this? And he's just taken it and run. It's been fun.
He's done a great job. Cheers to you guys. We're missing Haley Stoddard today. She's feeling a little under the weather, but she'll be back. Our Oracle will be back next week and sciencing the you-know-what out of everything, which we always appreciate. But we got a little bit of news, and that news is Amy went on a Star Trek cruise.
Yeah,
a little more than a 3-hour tour, I assume. So,
what I want to know is who led the counseling session.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was Amy. But Amy, first of all, tell us a little bit. Let's dive into this here. I've got some slides here that I'm going to show. This, of course, is a picture of you and the lovely Marina Sirtis. And who is with you in this picture?
Christos.
This is an awesome picture. I love it. First of all, tell us where it took off from and where you guys went, and we'll go from there.
All right. Yeah, we left this year was different. We normally are out of Florida. This time was out of LA, Long Beach, and went down to Mazatlan, Cabo San Lucas, Puerto Vallarta, and then 2 days back. So it was a 5-day or 7-day, whatever, 1 week. And it was pretty cold. If you remember, California was having some cold weather. It was raining, but you're not there for the weather. You're there for the people. And I was very excited. Christos very generously offered to have me in his picture with Marina. That just warmed my heart.
That was really cool.
Yeah. I also got to do a wine tasting with Marina Sirtis.
Very nice.
So there were a lot of there were a lot of actor hosted events. So I did the wine tasting with Marina, and also another wine tasting with Terry Farrell. Just saying.
Nice. Very nice.
And then there was Rob Perlman created a Star Trek Christmas book, and Jess Bush, who plays Nurse Chapel on Strange New Worlds, and Sarah Middich, who's Iriam and Lieutenant Nielsen on Discovery. So those three were there, and we made stockings, Christmas stockings, and it was so wonderful. Jess Bush came around to each table, spent a good 10, 15 minutes talking about Christmas traditions and all the fun stuff. It was really enjoyable. Those actor events really are what make the cruise special and differentiates it from any other type of convention.
I was wondering what what other okay, regarding Picard, I saw a picture that Todd Stashwick took to stage. I don't know if you were there or not, but what was his response to, I mean, what was the fans' response to him showing up? The fact that you guys get to watch Picard on the ship full of Star Trek fans as well.
Oh, yeah. He came out, introduced when we watched the episode, and he was a last minute addition because John Billingsley, who usually shows up, got feeling not too well and decided to cancel, and very good for him. So Todd Stashwick came in last minute, and he fulfilled all of John Billingsley duties, which include the vowel renewal. But he is absolutely amazing. He is such a fan himself. He is so quick-witted. He was so much fun to talk to. He was just out there with us. It was brilliant. He is an amazing man. Absolutely.
Kyle, you got any questions?
I just want to hope that Amy maybe didn't spill the fact I have a crush on a certain nurse since she was meeting her and stuff like that. I don't need any restraining orders put against me or anything like that.
The ship looked amazing. I got a picture here, of course. So you guys on a staircase here with a fun group photo, and then then there's a great picture of the inside here. This ship looked amazing. What was the name of the ship? Do you remember?
It was Navigator of the Sea on Royal Caribbean. They have a great promenade. All of the bars are redecorated into Star Trek themes. So
wow.
The Tiki Bar was a Gorn bar. The Mariners Retreat was the Schooner Bar. Like Quarks is the casino bar. And they have everything's decked out. They put these transparencies in the elevators, and the cars are everywhere. I mean, you feel like you're in a spaceship. It's truly remarkable. And the fun thing is, like, each night they have a different themed night. And so that one of them was Q's costume party, and that's where I was Deanna Troi, and then I had a whole bunch of Rikers, and they were different Rikers throughout the series. So we had like Chef Riker, Odan Riker, who was holding the trill. We had Thomas and Will Riker. Awesome. I had season 2 Riker. Like it was amazing. Another fun night was Knights of the Holodeck, and so I was in a maiden gown, and then I had all my knights around me. So that was really fun. It's really enjoyable to see everyone and how they interpret and their cosplay. Really quite wonderful.
2 questions I wanted to ask you. First of all, regarding cosplay, was whenever I go to like a Star Trek or Star Wars or G.I. Joe or whatever it is, there's always a couple of costumes that are very clever that I didn't expect to see, but being a fan of that particular genre, you get it. Was there a few that jumped out at you like, oh, I didn't expect to see that, but it's fantastic?
Yes, there was one. Actually, they are a mother and son in the LA away mission group. And she is a crocheter, and she crocheted, who's the psychiatrist on Lower Decks, the beak doctor.
Oh, I can't think of her.
The bird character. Yeah.
Yes. She crocheted an entire mask and mittens. It was spectacular. And you're like, oh my gosh, who would even think that? Well, they did it. We had some amazing Borg on board. They were in character, walking around, trying to assimilate everyone. There was a fun group that was out on the pool, and they had from the game with the and they were all standing around just sort of dazing off. And I'm like,
that's so
great,
funny.
great idea. And they're like, you want to play? I was like, no, run away.
That's fantastic. I know how big of a fan you are of Marina Sirtis, and the fact that you not only got a picture with Christos there, and then you got to do a wine tasting with her. What did you learn from her just hanging out and talking with her?
One thing that really impressed me, like last cruise, Terry Farrell and Nana Visitor and Jane Brooke, like they got together and sort of this woman of Trek, like Nana Visitor's been working on this book and this documentary exploring women of Trek and in sci-fi and telling their stories of overcoming and being strong. And I was like, why isn't Marina involved in this conversation? But this trip, I learned that she has a different platform and she speaks up for those victims. She does not like bullying and she will just, Marina, she says what she means and she will just say it no matter what. And her willingness to speak up for those less in power really impressed me. And I have a higher respect of her because of this.
That's great. Is there any, obviously you see a lot of your friends of the Star Trek family. Did you meet some new friends too?
Yes. How can you not? And I'm just like, there's 2,000 people on this ship and I don't know them all, but I am trying.
That's great. Well, do you think you might be hitting the next one next time?
Okay. No, I cannot. It leaves this time out of Florida, which is more enjoyable. And it's going to 2 ports that I haven't been to. And don't ask me what they are. But the dates are Thursday to Thursday, which would put me missing too many days of work. And I just can't do it. My original plan was to go every other year. So I didn't rebook to go on this year. However, a good friend, Ria Papagiorgio on the network, she had to cancel. And so I stepped in. So I have no plans to go, but we'll see.
I've never been on a cruise before and I've always wanted to. And I've thought about maybe a themed one would be a nice first one to go on. And
it'll ruin you for the rest.
Yeah, I guess. I would like to be on a boat like that and just take advantage of that and then, drop off on a port and come back. It just sounds like a lot of fun. So, yeah. Kyle, have you been on a cruise before, Kyle?
I have never done a cruise either. It's something I'm intrigued by. A theme cruise would be fun, but Kevin, I know truthfully you're waiting for your lovely wife so you both can take the Evil Dead themed cruise.
Or maybe a Highlander one, or I know they
Aliens.
I know they have Star Wars cruises too and stuff. But there's just something about the Star Trek cruise. They really got their stuff together.
They really do.
They get all the cool. Because when I see like Star Trek cruises compared to like other themed cruises and the guest, Star Trek cruises get all the good guests and have all the cool like parties and theme stuff that you're talking about. I think that's just great.
There was a lot of, instead of panels that you're used to going to, they're more different kinds. So we had Dr. Aaron McDonald and Mohammed Noor doing their science panels and just so many different ways. And like some of the shows, they're doing game shows and it's just so different than the convention. It's a different interaction with the actors and with the fans.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, because it always seems like on these cruises, especially the cruises, because the actors let their hair down a little bit more.
Yes.
There's always one or two of them that end up kind of stealing the show. Like, just so who stole the show on this cruise, Amy?
Okay. 2, and it's just.
I love the fact that she's got an answer to this
glasses.
Well, I was already talking about Todd Stashwich. He stole the show. And seriously, Tawny Newson, she came out. They were doing this like improv reading of a TOS episode. Like it was playing in the background, but there was no sound. It was just the actors pretending to, do the scenes. Tawny Newson, so quick-witted, hilarious, brilliant. She stole the show every single time she was on stage. She was so smart. She did one of the dance parties. She just lit up the room wherever she went.
That's awesome.
So it's true then, the lower deckers really truly know how to party.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, Amy,
Hands down.
thank you so much for that. I was looking at your pictures and other people's pictures, and it's cool. Real quick, I noticed they have like a big theater room there. That looked like a pretty big room there. Did they showcase the Picard episodes there? Where did you watch them?
Yeah, that was in the main showroom. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's 3 levels.
Wow.
So it's at the one end of the ship, and they had it there, and there's a big stage, and that's where all the main shows were.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for the recap. All right, well, let's get on with the main topic of the show here, guys. We are talking Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 5, The Imposter. This aired March 16th. And Amy, why don't you go ahead and give us the Admiral's Log episode synopsis? But first, spoiler alert. Go, have at it, Amy.
All righty. Riker returns command of the Titan to Captain Shaw. Shaw contacts Starfleet, who promptly sends the USS Intrepid to intercept them and take Picard and Riker into custody. The Starfleet officer in charge of security team is Ro Laren, who had betrayed Starfleet years earlier by defecting to the Maquis, but returned after her imprisonment. Beverly conducts the imposter's autopsy, discovers that the changelings have evolved to hold their shape longer and evade body scanning technology, and notifies Picard, but Ro drags him into a holodeck. Ro suspects that Starfleet's highest levels and both Intrepid and Titan are compromised by a changeling conspiracy. Picard realizes he still trusts her, and they reconcile before Ro gives Picard her earring. Ro pilots her shuttle, but changeling saboteurs plant a bomb on board, forcing her to steer into the Intrepid, sacrificing herself. Picard and Riker realize Ro's earring contains the intelligence she's gathered and a communication device. Worf and Raffi continued their investigation into the attack on Metalis Prime, finding the Vulcan criminal Kryn, who forces them to duel. Raffi seemingly defeats Worf, but Worf manages to kill Kryn's minions and force Kryn to give vital information about the attack. Worf and Raffi contact Picard and Riker via the earring, just as the Titan flees the Intrepid.
All right. Let's get your first reactions to this. I know, Amy, you just recently watched it, so it's fresh in your mind. And I was when I was watching you and Joe do the breakdown and stuff, the questions that you were having, especially in the beginning of the episode of the dream combined with what was happening on the bridge, was a little confusing. Everything with Jack supposedly taking out everyone, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this. It's fresh in your mind. You're back from your trips. What was your thought of Imposter?
Yeah, this episode, I was really glad to get back to Worf and Raffi, because last episode, we just didn't see them at all. And so I was really happy to see those scenes and to get so much more information. I didn't watch this until I got home really late Friday night and then again Saturday. And I was so surprised. No one spoiled it for me. When I saw Ro Laren, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Ro. Michelle Forbes looks amazing. Her acting even better. The scenes between her and Picard got me. Those tears fell. And I have so many questions about Jack Crusher and sort of Beverly. Like, is she a changeling? Does she know that Jack is, or is he not? And then is his ability to sense changelings? It's all messed up, and I still don't know a thing.
Yeah, a lot of questions. Kyle, your thoughts, first impression.
Well, I'm feeling awfully chipper for this episode. So. But this was a phenomenal episode. There is so much going on. Obviously, seeing Ro back, I wasn't expecting it. It was a complete and utter shock. everything with Worf and Raffi is just magic. Those two need to find the way to start coming up with spin-off ideas, because I can think of at least 2 good ones out of this season of Picard already. Jack Crusher, the mystery is very intriguing. Can I temporarily fill in for the Oracle here for just a minute, Mr. Reitzel?
Please. Yeah.
I think what's going on is there is a group of changelings that has split from the rest of the changelings, and whatever's going on with Jack Crusher ties into their newfound abilities as well. And there's something with Jack Crusher that causes that connection. And there's some genetic stuff at work here. Maybe Beverly did something that was made to do something we don't even know about yet. Some interesting things going on here. So, but yeah, I think there's definitely
hold on. You're just gonna throw that out there. What do you think Beverly did? Come on, don't just go. I think Beverly did.
I think.
What do you think she did?
I think Beverly might have provided somehow, accidentally or intentionally, provided some Jack. There's something special about Jack's DNA, or she did something with some changelings, maybe to save Jack's life when he was younger, or something like that. And it's altered Jack's DNA where he has this connection. And it may have allowed this group of changelings that is out there now that seems to be infiltrating Starfleet to have these abilities that we've seen revealed within this episode. So there's some stories we're not being told yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Okay, I like the clarification, because if something's weird with Jack, wouldn't Beverly know?
Well,
is she hiding something, you know?
Yeah, and add to the fact that Jack Crusher, the voice he's hearing is Beverly's.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's the connection.
Definitely. I was digging this episode, and yes, when I saw Rollaren, I might have done this. Whoa! I am a huge Rollaren fan. Always have been. I've loved her story arc. One of my favorite, it's probably in my top 10, maybe reaching towards top 5. My favorite episode with Rollaren is the one with Geordi where they get phased, and there's that Romulan board, the Enterprise D, and they're trying to stop this so-called thing that's happening, and it's going to blow up the Enterprise D. And I love that episode. I love every time that she was on. I love it when they got changed to kids and her connection to Guinan. And when we found out later that she was invited to be on Star Trek Deep Space Nine as the Kira Nerys character, but she turned it down from what I've heard. Because I know that she was doing some movies at the time. Maybe she thought she wanted to go in a different direction, so they created the Kira Nerys character. I always at least kind of wish that she would have come back to Star Trek in one way or another. And I was really happy to see her in I think it was a one-shot movie for Battlestar Galactica called Razor, where she was the commander of one of the Battlestar ships. And she was a very stern captain. And I kind of saw a little bit of that in this portrayal of her returning as the character, the Ro character now. And I love Michelle Forbes. I always have been. I got a chance to meet her once at Dragon Con. I got her autograph, and I'm a huge fan of that character. And I like the fact that it didn't end all happy-go-lucky. She went to the Maquis because she felt like she had a family there, and she did betray Picard and Riker. Both of them were mentors for her, if you think about it, as well as possibly Guinan. And, I'm glad they addressed that in this episode. And I just want to mention too, I am so loving Shaw right now, guys. I want him to continue with Picard. And Kyle, you mentioned it. I think was it on Culture Clash or the response to Shaw and Todd's performance. People are screaming for more Shaw after Picard, that if he did film a death scene, let's hope that they, as you said, are rewriting that and reshooting that scene right now, because I don't want him to die. Amy, what are your thoughts? So this is the first time we've had you on since early on. So what are your thoughts on Shaw? Because we weren't supposed to like him right away, but then like the second episode, you're just like, I'm liking him, and now I'm liking him more. I'm liking him. He's like always that says what we're thinking, and he's not afraid to call anyone out. Your thoughts on Shaw?
Yeah, I think Todd is doing a fabulous job. I think as much as Anson Mount puts into Captain Pike, like Anson Mount will do these weird little quirks, and his casualness and the chemistry with the actors on Strange New World, I'm picking up from Todd Stashwick. Like when he's tapping the table and is like, get your story together, or when he knights, Seven because he's reinstating her. Like those choices after seeing him on the cruise, those are him. I can see his personality coming through Captain Shaw, and it just makes me love him even more. But he's this wounded character, and he's like, why do they get away with all the crap and get promoted and admiral and captain and get all the praise? And here I am following every single rule and I'm getting nowhere. Like, so there's that bitterment that it's like breaking the rules, getting reward, following the rules, not getting anything. I can totally see that because that happens a lot in my life too.
I have those quotes actually here where Shaw says to Seven, so Commander, would you like to face the music stated or unstated? And she goes, stated. And then I reinstate you, like he's, knighting her or whatever. And then I love how, as you mentioned, and courtesy because of the harrowing ordeal that we all survived together, I'm going to step outside and so the three of you can get your bullshit story together. I'm out.
Yeah.
So let's be honest. I think we're at the point with Picard, at least at this point, when this series ends, we want to hear announcements of a Titan series with Shaw, and we want some kind of Worf and Raffi show.
We just want it all.
Yeah,
you do.
But one of the things that I loved about Shaw in this episode, in I love how much drama takes place in turbo lifts in Star Trek universe. And when they're going down, he's in the turbo lift with Riker and Picard, and of the past incidents that he throws out against them. He mentions the anti-time anomaly in the Devron system, supposedly wiping out all of humanity. It also shouts out the romance with Picard and Anj on the Baku planet of insurrection, throwing the Prime Directive out the window, and the Enterprise D hull crashing into Viridian 3. I just thought that was really funny because he was able to pick certain moments that a lot of us going like, if I met Picard in a bar, would I what really happened here?
Oh, and then days. Picard's like, those were the days. Yeah. And the music gets all TNG and it's like, oh, nostalgia. I remember each of those times and I loved Anij. So I was very grateful for that shout out.
Anij, that's right. That's how you pronounce it. Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and head into the first away mission. All right, guys, the first away mission that we are going to be discussing is Ro Laren. Remember this Ro Laren? This, of course, is when the Ro Laren kid in Rascals, which was brilliantly oh God, I can't remember the actress's name, but she was perfect as a young Ro Laren. But no, that's not the one we're talking about. We're talking about this one holding a phaser and 10 forward, trying to find out if Picard is who he is. Guys, Ro Laren is back, but unfortunately only back for a short amount of time because then she sacrifices herself. I want to get your thoughts. Kyle, I'm going to start with you. Were you a fan of Ro Laren from the TNG days?
I like Ro a lot. I like the fact that she kept Picard and Riker both on their toes. She had a great relationship with Guinan, and she just brought a certain energy that I don't think anybody else in the cast really brought per se. And so I remember when they wrote her off and everything was going on with the Maquis, and obviously I know there was the Deep Space Nine. I know a lot of people thought, well, maybe she'll show up in Voyager, with the Maquis connections there and things going on. But I love this character, and I always felt it was a shame that she left and really never got a chance to come back in any of the shows because there were so many opportunities with connections there. But to have her come on, I like I said earlier, I was not expecting it. It was an utter shock, and really everything with her was an utter shock because they try to play up the changeling thing. You have this incredible conversation with her and Picard in the 10 forward holodeck, and then to have her be sacrificed like she was, I can say honestly, no idea that was coming, and it was actually quite powerful. I'm like, wow, brought back just to have that happen. I was kind of shocked.
Yeah. What about you, Amy? I Were you a fan of that character during TNG?
Well, no, because she kept hitting on Riker, and that's Troy's man. So back off, Ro. So yeah, I've had this, like Picard, 30 years of a little bitterment towards Ro because of that. But to have her explain herself and the morals that she was doing what was right at the right time. And for her to call out Picard and saying, had you trusted me, had you loved me, as you said you did, you would have understood. But when you turned your back on me and just your love and acceptance was conditional. And bam, when she called him out on that, this season, well, this series is sort of calling out Picard like, oh, the whole time through TNG, oh, no one likes Picard because he's the perfect captain. He does everything right. But we're seeing the consequences of this utopian captain because he's getting called out time after time after time. First with Beverly, now with Ro. Like, we're seeing his faults come in with with his relationships.
Just a kind of an interesting thing with what you say there, Amy. I kind of look at it this way. It's kind of interesting. Picard is now technically a synthetic, but they've been humanizing him more at the same time. Mm-hmm. I find that to be just this little interesting undercurrent thing that they've been doing with Picard since season 1. Yeah. And it's like he's less human in the biological sense, but he might be more human than he ever has been.
Right.
Yeah. I'd always curious how she would come back into Starfleet, and I was surprised that she did, and I'm glad that they addressed that. I thought that was really cool. One of the iconic scenes when we first meet her, of course, is that she's getting called out of, first of all, what she's wearing by Riker, and then she explains, why you address her as Rolaren, not, the other way around. And I like that the earring came back into play in this, and because, especially when Picard questioned it. And I got a article, thedigitalfix.com, and I got a quote here I want to talk about here. Riker and Picard inspect Ro's earpiece and find that it contains a data chip with all of the findings of her investigation. The Changeling conspiracy has gone right up to the Starfleet chain of command, words which are displayed on screen in a not-so-subtle reference. The earpiece receives a transmission, and it's from none other than Worf. Worf's handler was Rolaren, and he had been reporting to her with the results of the mission. Aboard the shuttle back of the Intrepid, Ro's 2 security guard officers set up a bomb and beam away, and surprisingly, they're changelings. Realizing that she's been backed into a corner, Rolaren crashes her shuttle into the Intrepid's port nacelle to give the Titan a head start, sacrificing herself in the process of buying time. We've been through a lot of adventures with Rolaren here, guys, and this is how it ends up here, sacrificing herself, which I thought was a really good way. If you're going to kill off a character, do it in this way, and then leave the clues of all of the work that you've been doing with this capable crew. And I love the fact that we got to tie into Worf here. That's who he's been in contact with. I like how the pieces are slowly starting to come together here. Amy, when this realization came, what was your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was so exciting. And it just sort of made the pieces domino fall, because when Worf is talking to the handler with Rafi at the beginning of the episode, and they're like, give us access to the Daystrom station. It's like, denied. Why? We need access. Denied. But then it was like, you can't go in this way, but keep on searching. And then we realize, oh, it's Ro that is telling, yes, you need to keep searching because we got to get at it from a different way, because most likely, obviously, Daystrom Station is compromised. So I loved that just sort of fell into place with me when we found that out.
Yeah. Kyle, your thoughts on Michelle Forbes? I remember her back when she did the movie California with Brad Pitt. I think was it David Duchovny? I think was in that. Yeah. She was in Escape from LA. She was in True Blood for a while, The Hunger Games. She's been in a bunch of stuff, and I'm a big fan of her personally. But seeing her play this character of authority and someone who's deep into this conspiracy, I thought was fantastic.
She's a phenomenal actress, and she just has a particular presence on it. She's been in so many things within fandom. I've got her IMDb up in front of me right now, and just looking at it, she was in that Treadstone series, which was the spin-off TV series on the USA Network for the Bourne Identity. She was in episodes of Orphan Black. She's done just so many different things, video game wise, everything. She's so talented. I actually had forgotten she was in Razor. You reminded me of that because I haven't seen that in so long, Kevin.
The Battlestar Galactica movie, yes.
Yeah. She is just phenomenal. But I honestly truly do believe Ro Laren might be her, kind of apex, most well-known character because of the importance of Star Trek. And to have her back, and I think in a way to have that closure with Picard was really important. But there is an aspect I want to know is, I want to know how Worf reacted when he first found out Ro Laren was going to be his handler. Because that's an interesting backstory in itself there, too.
Explain.
Well, I mean, just with obviously Ro's history with Picard, Worf's history with Picard, Worf, I'm sure, knowing what's going on, but Worf having maybe a different perspective because of his time on Deep Space Nine and seeing the Bajoran situation firsthand as well. I think it would be very interesting. I'd love to have like a short trek or something where maybe they kind of show that moment and see how, because Worf knows it's Ro is his handler,
right?
Because of the shock he sees when Riker and Picard come up, and he asks, "Where's Commander Ro?" And so he knew. So wherever Raffi didn't know who her handler was. So it was just very interesting, and that is something that I found fascinating when I was thinking about it. While I was watching the episode, it's like Worf knew who his handler was. There had to have been some mixed emotions when that first happened.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if that maybe comes to fruition in the next episode when Worf kind of goes at Amy.
Yeah, and plus Worf is like, well, the handler's telling us no, we can't go at Daystrom Station that way, probably because her boss. So there's that little dangle of who's Ro searching out this information for? Who's Ro's handler?
And I'm curious, with all of the research that she has hidden inside that earring, I'm wondering if the writers and creators of Star Trek are going to have fun with all of the mentions that she's doing, because I think there's going to be some names that we're going to recognize, and I'm really fascinating to see what's going to happen there. All right, guys, the next topic I want to go into is, and Kyle, this is your expertise, the residue. The changelings can pass the blood screening. Oh my God. One of the cool things about Deep Space Nine was the battle against Dominion and the changelings and them having to do those security sweeps with their phasers. And, when changelings turned to their goo thing, we had that kind of glimmery gold thing going on. Now we got this weird fleshy, icky looking thing going on, and that they can retain their form. This is very scary. And Kyle, if you're correct, this is like another faction of changelings. The big question is where does Odo come into this? Because it's sad that Rene Auberjonois has passed away, but I think that they can still make him part of the plan, whether it's by mention or what have you, because his going back to the Great Link, if that's what they called it.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened? What if you're right, Kyle, what kind of splinter faction is doing this? If that's the case, is it like a power play? So, Kyle, let me go to you with this. So, we got Beverly having a really good moment here, finding about this information, and realizing, man, our security has got to change now.
It's so interesting because you talk about this, and the more we see of this, the more I feel like, yes, this is definitely a splinter group of changelings that have separated themselves from the Great Link. Probably were not happy with defining peace with the Federation, and I feel like there's been some DNA type or altering somehow to these changelings. That's the reason why they're not the shiny gold. That's the reason why they can pass blood. They've done something to themselves. And I don't think it's reflective of the entire race of the changelings. And so The question is how much is this of an offshoot? You know, obviously we're seeing it's got a pretty big base here. Beverly acts surprised, but I'm also kind of, you know, Beverly.
You're suspicious.
I'm suspicious because for somebody who's been out of Starfleet for so long, she's getting instant access again, like it's nobody's business. And I'm sorry, as revered as Beverly Crusher probably is, I don't know if they're allowing her some of the accesses that she's been getting. And she knows more than she's letting on. And she knows more about what's going on with Jack than she's letting on. She might not know the full story because Jack's probably still keeping a few secrets from himself. But the fact that they're referencing Jack had nightmares when he was a child too. Beverly knows there's more going on than what you're being told right now.
Amy, I know you got something to say on this.
Yeah, so much to say. So to your point, Kyle, what I was seeing is that Beverly has the expertise. And so that's why she's getting so much access. She's been hunting she has been hunted by these changeling. She may not have known exactly what they were and how advanced they've become, but she has expertise. She's been saving Jack since he was a kid. So she has the expertise. She knows what's going on a little bit more than Dr. Oak, who this is the first time that they've even known about changelings. And something else about Jack, but it just went out. So keep on talking.
Well, Amy, go ahead, Kyle.
I just have, because Beverly seemed surprised that it was changelings too when they've discovered it was changelings. There did seem to be like, wow, really, changelings. So has she known? Like I said, is there a secret? Are there secrets there that she's not telling us to get the full story? Is she playing up a little bit of, oh wow, changelings? You know, playing up and keeping some secrets and things like that along the way.
Okay, remembered my thought. Okay, so the changeling, and she's when Dr. Oak's like, is this a new species? And she's like, no, it's evolution. So think back to Deep Space Nine, and I'm terrible with Deep Space Nine altogether, but the episode that the changeling where he's inviting Odo to practice and to hone, and the one turns into fire, right? And like, so I'm wondering if that's where the splinter happened, where it's like we've got a group of changeling that wants to further their evolution into being more perfect. And sorry, going down the Borg way, but they are now that even when they die, their body keeps its form. And it's under, as Dr. Crusher says, intense dissection where it then turns into the goo. So I'm wondering if that time at Deep Space Nine, there might have been a splinter where some changelings are like, we can be more perfect. We don't have to just have the outside form. Let's go outside and inside.
You know, that's a great observation, Amy, because I'm thinking if this is evolution, was there something that encouraged it as well? And I'm also wondering if Beverly, with her Doctors Without Borders situation, came across changelings or something in the past. And maybe part of this is revenge too against the Crusher family. I'm wondering if there's something regarding that where she tried to help and something didn't happen, or maybe she disagreed with something and tried to stop them, and and Jack got involved. So I love this is something that we need to watch out for because something's not right about Jack, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, guys, I want to talk about these guys right here. Let's talk about Worf and Raffi. I love the fact they go hunting. They do a little sparring to begin with here. I'm loving this team here. And I want to get your thoughts on this. So I pulled another part from that article saying, though it's now linked with the main plot, Worf and Raffi's side quest has simply been a drag right from the start. It's just worse than the rest of the show, as if it was written, designed by a different team entirely. In Star Trek PICARD Season 3, Episode 4, we were spared some of that, but we were allowed to focus on the main event, and the episode was much better for it. I completely disagree with this article here, but I do know there was some criticism of like, what's happening with Worf? What's happening here? I think people are just impatient, and they were taking a while to set the pieces. And we finally get them together. It's great. They've been working well as a team. We're going to tease a little bit more about this on the Ready Room because Michelle Hurd and Michael Dorn are guest on that, and they talk about their experiences. But I was kind of wondering what was going on. And as you mentioned earlier, Amy, we missed them the last episode, but we got them here, and that's what's important. And it ties into the bigger picture. So it's just laying the seeds, because if you rewatch this now, you know what's coming. So your thoughts on the Worf and Raffi team up, messing with the gangster Vulcans? I loved it.
No, I am loving the Worf story and his wisdom that he now has as an elder. And with me turning the big 50 this year, you're looking back at your life. I mean, there's more life behind you than in front of you. And you can see where you need to have patience. And I absolutely love twice Worf goes down onto his knees to patiently wait. And when he's at Metalis Prime, and Raffi's like, come on, where's Kryn? What's it? Kryn. He's like, oh, what are you doing now? Well, I am waiting, because the balance of power has been shifted, but the economy or the ecology, we had a debate on that on Galaxy class, but we need to it's going to find its stasis, and that's when Kryn comes out, because now that power is getting shifted. Kryn's going to come and take power back from Worf and Raffi. That whole patience of waiting for the teeter-totter to get back perfectly describes Worf's character arc. And he sees himself in Raffi. So it's like, oh, young Padawan, just you wait. That's what I feel like this is. And I am loving it. And it's so appropriate, because that sort of goes along with Picard's story and all of these characters that are getting older, and what have they learned in their youth.
It tickles me that you just dropped a Star Wars reference there, Amy, because that scene I saw referenced with the famous scene in episode 1 where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are chasing after Darth Maul in the generator room, and those generators screens temporarily keep them apart. And what do you see Qui-Gon do? He drops down and meditates before he gets up and starts fighting.
Yes.
I thought that was funny. Kyle, your thoughts on the Worf and Raffi team up here? They step it up here.
So Amy actually steals my thunder a little bit, Kevin, because I was going to ask you, which version of Obi-Wan team up is this? Is this Obi-Wan teaching Anakin, or is this Obi-Wan teaching Luke?
There you go.
I saw more of a Qui-Gon and Padawan Obi-Wan in this, if you ask me. But yeah.
No, I can definitely see that. I love this teaming because, one, and I know they talk about this a little bit on the Ready Room too, but I love the fact that Worf sees Raffi for what she is and accepts it, not trying to change it, or he goes with it, and he's trying to teach her to use her strengths, and that what she sometimes thinks is her weaknesses are her strengths. And I think this is great development for the Raffi character. And, it's one of these things where it makes me so hopeful that we get more with this character once this season of Picard ends, when it's a new show, she gets moved over to a different show, something. But this character is big. This is one of the better new characters that Star Trek has introduced in its current iterations. And I hope we get a lot more with Raffi, especially the changes that she's going through with Worf. I think it's going to lead to her reuniting with her family at some point, whether it's by the end of the season or somewhere down the road. But it's so intriguing, and it's such. You think about this character from when we first saw her in season 1 of Picard, where she's at even just right now. It's been one of the best character builds I've seen in Star Trek in a very long time.
Yeah, good. But I'm glad you mentioned the family thing, because that's a thread that needs to be tugged at again, I think. Amy, did you have something you want to mention?
Yes. And another thread that's just dangling out there This is now twice Worf has mentioned how much he has sacrificed for this cause, specifically this cause. So we need to hear this story. It's going to be, I'm sure, epic, and we'll explain Worf so much more. But this is now twice. He's like, I have sacrificed for this, and I will sacrifice again.
That's an excellent point, Amy, because I didn't catch that, and you're right. And so I'm wondering if it's family related, if there's something happens that goes there. That is an excellent point. All right, guys, I need to talk about one more thing before we head into the break here, and this is our last topic here. Jack Crusher, WTF? What is going on here? We've been teased. Something's happening. These weird little like tentacle things are showing up behind him on the wall and on people's faces. And, it's funny too, because after watching The Last of Us, Kyle, we're getting kind of a similar vibe with that. And then we see when it comes to the Borg veins all over things, and they take over rooms as well. Is this what happens? Is this a new thing with the changeling? Are we getting something going on here? We get the red eyes. Well, I got another excerpt from an article I wanted to mention here, and he goes on to say, now that the latest episode, we open with Jack Crusher having another one of his visions. However, in this week's outing of Star Trek Picard Season 3, these visions are much more aggressive than what we've seen before, in it that he kills the bridge crew. In his mind's ear, or is that something people say, he hears a voice that tells him, return home. This heavily suggests that he's a changeling and just doesn't know it. You can be certain that, and Star Trek loves a surprise, but changelings have always been protective of their own kind, and it would explain why Vadic and the Shrike were assigned to capture him, rather than just destroy the USS Titan. Is the voice calling him back to the Great Link? The changelings finally find Jack Crusher on the Titan and try to beam him away, but with his visions in full flow, he kills all four. As Beverly says, remarkable. Guys, he went all John Wick on us here and took care of these changelings with this impressive takedown military skill that either he learned somewhere, maybe it was that British school where he picked up his accent, I don't know, but he turned up the intensity here, and then his eyes, of course, glow red, and we're like, what's going on here? Is he being called back? What's going on? I don't know. Amy, tell me, please explain. I want to know what's going on.
Okay. Total speculation, obviously, but I'm getting this vibe that, Jack doesn't really know what's going on. So is he like a sleeper agent, sort of reminiscent of Ash Tyler / Vogue, where, Tyler didn't really know what was happening until he was activated. And then whenever Jack has these red door, imaginations that he's being activated, because when he kills those four changeling, which we find out are changeling, like he had this vision and this red door thing, and then he kills them all, and then we have this vision with destroyed. I mean, it was Stranger Things weirdness vibe, and these particles that were floating down. Like, is he attached to the mycelial network? Like, I'm grasping at straws, trying to figure out where are we going with this.
I love the straws. That's great. That's better than I can come with, because that was awesome. Kyle, you got thoughts?
I have a very big thought. Jack Crusher is not a changeling. However, he is bonded with a changeling.
Oh.
Jilted lover? Jilted friend?
No. The changelings are obsessed with getting Jack Crusher. Why are they obsessed with getting Jack Crusher? And not just getting Jack Crusher alive.
Right.
Jack Crusher is hearing a voice in his head. We're seeing the weird eye thing. We're seeing him go through some things. We see this door open. When that door opens, is there another personality that is taking over, that Jack Crusher is subconsciously allowing to take over his body, that hence he can sense other changelings, because there's a changeling somewhere in there, or something different, because we're talking about if we're talking about changeling evolution, What if there's a bond, a symbiotic bond between Jack Crusher and a changeling?
Yeah, didn't Kira Nerys go into the link for a little bit? Am I remembering that wrong? I can't remember.
I think she did.
Yeah, because it was important that because she had a relationship with Odo, it was important for Odo to share that link with her. So yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah, I like that, Kyle. Because whatever it is, it's big. So yeah.
Have you been seeing out on social media mention of paw wraiths? Do you think that could fit in any way, shape, or form? Because when they did the transporter and you saw like the red fire, that just was very paw wraithy.
It'd be nice to get mentions of those because maybe we also might know where Benjamin Sisko went to. So we like to see him come back. So yeah. All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's transport away here. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here and let you guys know what else is happening on the Fandom Podcast Network. And we're going to be back with Away Mission number 2 with some trivia, Easter eggs, and Ready Room discussion. We'll be right back. Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek, and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. All right, welcome back to the Fandom Podcast Network and the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville. And we are talking Star Trek PICARD, Season 3, Episode 5, The Imposter. And our next away mission, we're going to have a little fun here. Let's transport down. All right, we got some Star Trek trivia and some Easter eggs. I always love these here. All right, guys. So Commander Ro returns after her last appearance in TNG's preemptive strike 29 years ago. Sadly, of course, she doesn't survive the episode. It took 29 years, Amy, but I'm glad we got her back at least for a little bit here.
You know, this was a story that I didn't know I needed a conclusion to. And we got it. And it was so well written. Beautiful arc. We love her. It changed my mind about her. Like, it was so well done. I'm just very impressed with the writers for bringing her back and having a great conclusion to her story.
You know, this reminds me, when you brought that up, that it wasn't a story that we didn't know we kind of needed situation, but we're so glad that we got it. There was a friend of mine that quoted or put a post on my social media post about how I was loving this season. And a lot of people were saying the same thing. It was great. all the references and call outs. And he actually complained. He said, I'm not going to say his name, but I know him well. He says, I thought it's just too much fan service trying to bring stuff out of this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I've said, I don't think it's fan service in the way you think it is. I think it's connective tissue and kind of tying the whole world together. And I have a problem with the term fan service, and I have for a long time. People use it as a negative connotation. I can't really think of any really bad fan service. I've a couple of things that can go, yeah, okay, a little corny, fine. But I don't know about you guys, but if you want to call this fan service, give me all the fan service, because they're doing a very good job of connecting things and mentioning things, because like the conversation they had in the Turbo Lift, calling out Picard and the Enterprise D and all these adventures, because these are things that you can read in, the captain's log later on if you don't know all the details. But this is Star Trek history that the rest of the Star Trek world should know and, is referenced. Amy, what is your thought on that? Are you happy with the way that they're rolling out these callbacks in so-called fan service?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Because I think Picard says it best when Riker's like, I didn't know she meant that much to you. And he's like, no, you didn't. And I didn't know how much she meant to me. Like this fan service, we learned so much more about Picard and his honesty with himself, and that he wasn't viewing her correctly because there was conditions. He only loved her when she was doing good things for Starfleet. Like we learned so much more about Picard. We learn so much about Captain Shaw because he's rattling off all these things and that bitterment that he has towards Picard. Like we're learning about the characters through this fan service. So no, it's not fan service. It's giving us the richness and the complexity of the story.
I'm glad you mentioned that in that way, Amy, because Kyle, when I was looking at, especially that scene that we just mentioned again in the Turbo Lift, because when Picard replies, not to Shaw, but to after he mentions everything and he goes to Riker going, those were the days, so to speak, he's speaking for himself, but he's also speaking for us. Like, damn, those were good episodes. Those are great moments. Those are funny. Those are intense. Kyle, fan service. Why is fan service a bad thing? I don't know. Your thoughts.
So here's the problem with the term fan service is being a fan of certain things that I am, fan service has a different meaning, especially in the anime side of things. And that, so people kind of twisted the words around to mean whatever they feel like. To me, when I talk fan service, it's putting something in a story that is in it, but it feels like it's so out of place, but they're just forcing it in just to appease the fans because they want to see a moment or something like that. To me, that's fan service. What Picard is not doing fan service. Picard is using nostalgia to create connective tissue to advance the story of these characters. Yes, guess what? The older you get, the more we become nostalgic. And all these characters are older. So yes, they're having some nostalgia for their own adventures and time frames. And so they're coming up in conversation and reference. Just like Kevin and I, 20 years from now, will talk about, do you remember that time on Union Federation? This is a natural progression kind of thing. And especially with the way Picard has been handled, because I think a lot of people were expecting all these TNG connections right out of the gate from season 1 of Picard. And season 1 and season 2 established something different for Picard. And now season 3 is closing out the story of Picard. And yes, if you want to call it fan service, that's fine. If you want to define it that, but what it's giving you is it's giving you closure in a way on a lot of dangling plot threads and questions we've had answers to for a long time. Not everybody's going to agree with the answers that they're getting or the storyline that they're getting, but we're getting it. And that's what's making it special.
That's a good point. I appreciate that, Kyle. And, when I was thinking about a negative terminal or a negative version of fan service, I've heard some people complain about the recent episode of The Mandalorian where a character says it's a trap in front of a a character that was like the character that said it in Star Wars, and people are going, it's a little on the nose there, so to speak. So, but yeah, comes to Star Trek, give me all the fan service because I'm enjoying everything. They haven't disappointed me, and I'd like to kind of change the narrative. Let's use fan service as a positive thing. So, a few more trivia here, guys. When Worf looks up the name Kryn, the list of names also contains Morn of Luria, Brunt of Ferenginar, who are both reoccurring secondary characters on Deep Space Nine, as well as, I love this one, Fadian Okana, otherwise known as the outrageous Okana, who had appeared in Star Trek Generation and Prodigy. I thought that was great.
Can I just say something here? When he was going through the criminal list, there's part of me that was hoping to see Mariner of Starfleet.
I know, right? that would have been fun. Also, too, and I love this connective tissue with other shows. Kirk Acevedo, who played Kryn, is it Acevedo?
Yeah, Acevedo.
Acevedo. I've seen him before in lots of stuff.
He's so much good stuff. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's got that great voice. He was a major character in the series 12 Monkeys alongside Aaron Stanford, who played Sneed, and of course, Todd Stashwick, who plays Captain Shaw. When describing his relationship to Sneed, Kryn explains that they were brothers coming up together as scavengers. This is a reference to their roles in 12 Monkeys, where prior to the main storyline on the show, the two survived the collapse of the civilization as scavengers, relying on each other to the point of considering themselves brothers. Love this too. What was that?
I just wanted to say, I love Kirk Acevedo in this, and what an original use for a Vulcan. And explaining why it's logical for there to be a criminal Vulcan. That was so cool.
Yeah,
so amazing.
Yeah. That was a nice touch. Yeah. Guinan's penchant for keeping loaded weapons behind 10 Forward's bar as a security precaution. Even the 10 Forward simulation incorporates this quirk of the Elorans, something Picard exploits to gain access to a phaser when confronting what he believes is a changeling posing as Ro. This also isn't the first time Picard has exploited a holodeck against a hostile foe, i.e. First Contact. So there you go. Ro's friendship.
I have a question.
Yeah. What's up, Amy?
So I asked this on Galaxy Class, and I'm going to ask you guys. So Ro comes in with the phaser from outside into the holodeck, and then Picard, turns off the safety protocols because the phaser that he's picking up was created in the holodeck. So my question is, obviously the controls had to be off so that his phaser could be lethal. Obviously he wasn't going to kill Ro, but if Ro came in with an outside phaser and the safety protocols were left on, would the phaser have worked?
I would say yes, because it was brought from outside and it wasn't created inside. That would be my guess. Kyle, what do you think?
I agree with what you think. I think the safety protocols are only for things that are created within the holodeck. If somebody brings an outside element into the holodeck can't control that.
That makes
right. Okay.
Still, the whole thing about going to the bathroom inside the holodeck and that really funny scene in Lower Decks where they have to clean the holodeck, I thought was really funny.
We still can't escape the P corner.
Answered a lot of questions, Kyle.
Yeah, we still can't escape the P corner, can we?
Yeah. Maybe they should just put an outhouse in the corner where the P corner is there on the Orville and just help everything else there. So, all right. Ro's friendship with Guinan during TNG also gets brought up during this scene. Picard acidly asks Ro if she remembers Guinan, though it's also a test to see if really Ro is not a changeling. I thought that was a very important scene because I think the moments with Guinan were really important in TNG for many, many reasons, because she was like a mentor. I mean, Guinan even annoyingly goes up to her saying, well, you got a friend now, and she's like, go away. What are you doing? I love, that's what we love about Guinan, and brilliantly played, of course, by Whoopi Goldberg. So, and I thought this was interesting too. My last bit of trivia here is Raffi has access to a mobile emitter. 29th Century Tech Voyager picked up in Future's End episode. Starfleet has clearly managed to duplicate the tech in the interim. And the fact that Krim recognized that it was an immobile emitter. So that's interesting. A little throwback there. I thought that was really, really cool. So yeah. All right, guys, let's go ahead and hit the ready room. Okay, so Amy, we know you haven't had time to watch the ready room. So guess what? We're going to spoil it for you.
Yeah, this is why I'm missing Haley, because usually when I don't watch it, she does watch it. So Haley.
Well, this is good because usually there's one of us that hasn't had a chance to see it, and it's also been nice too because the Ready Room is available not only on YouTube to watch but also on Paramount Plus. You know, when you watch the episode and then you see either the special features or whatever, there's a link to the Ready Room right there. So that's always nice that they have that. And in this one was a really nice one, guys, because we had guest Michelle Hurd and Michael Dorn. They talk friendship and representation. And this was really, really sweet to see them together here. And I really see that they have really created a bond and a friendship between them as actors. Then it translated really well onto the screen. And I think that there were moments within their time together behind or in front of the camera that might, whether it was maybe a dialogue or something that happened in the scene that they might have changed or adapted to, because these guys were really, really hitting it off. And I love the fact that they're holding hands and caressing each other, and they've done the red carpet together as well. It was really, really cool to see them talking together. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Kyle. You watched this. It seemed like to me that you kind of want to see them get together in real life.
they definitely have a chemistry that's very much born from family and respect. There's so many interesting things, and they were talking about how Worf and Raffi are kind of similar in their own ways, where they were kind of maybe in a little bit the outsiders on their own crews. Where Raffi, because of her past and things she's went through, Worf being Klingon and his experience early on in Starfleet. But there is definitely a bond between these two that developed from their time filming together. And what's even more amazing is to watch Michelle Hurd towards the end of this interview. She gets incredibly emotional because she talks about her last day recording, doing something as Raffi, and how, they talk about Michael Dorn being been in the most episodes of Trek, and Worf being the most character who's been in the most episodes of Trek. And she's like, I've only been able to be part of this family for 30 episodes. And you see Michael Dorn just say, yeah, but you're part of this family for life now. And you're good, bad, warts and all. And you see Will Wheaton really embrace that too. And one of the things too, the other thing I found very interesting and heartwarming about this is Raffi's talking about Michelle Hurd's talking about Raffi's addictions. And Will Wheaton opens up on something he doesn't always open up a lot about. And he talks about his own personal battle with alcoholism.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And it's a very emotional episode, and it's very intense, but it's all coming from this wonderful place, and it's very heartwarming. And you watch this, and we know how much of a family the Next Generation is, and how Star Trek is. Each crew's kind of their own family, but you really see this, and you see how much this Next Generation family has taken in the actors who have joined since PICARD started, and really made them part of the Next Gen family. And it's so touching, and it's so beautiful to see.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the personal experience that Will has gone through regarding alcoholism, but also that was brought up regarding Raffi's character, because we look back on that scene, was it episode 1 or 2, where she's talking with her ex-husband, and has the ultimatum, either you drop what you're doing and you get to see your kid, or, you never do and you continue your mission. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And it sucks that he gave her that ultimatum, because that she wasn't going to be able to do that. But, seeing the hurt in her eyes, and myself having to have lived with someone with alcoholism, it's not a pretty sight. It is a horrible thing to see someone go through. And all that you can really do is just give your love and support in any way that you can. And it's, being around someone that is, doing that to themselves. And when you see someone trying to make efforts to come out of it, I think Michelle Hurd is doing a fantastic job showing a little bit of that in her eyes and how it still haunts her, and that she had to, take that space drug, with the Ferengi just to prove her that she isn't who she is, was another struggle and everything. But seeing these two together and sitting on the same couch together, you could definitely tell that they have a bond that will never go away, and that she felt like, she is now part of this Star Trek family, and that Worf, Michael Dorn himself, is definitely there to guide the way and to welcome her into that family. And it was really cool. Kyle.
Two other things real quick. One, Michael Dorn tells the greatest Lou Rawls story ever.
Yes.
Two, Kevin, I want to make a comment about the Ready Room itself, because I think I've said many a time during this season of Picard how good the Ready Room has been. And I was thinking about it after watching this episode. It's the fact that you're having them together and not on video screens, but they're there with Will in the same room having these conversations. So they're really being able to act off of emotions. And I think it's just made it so much more powerful for the season of the Red Room, obviously with it being original Next Gen cast and Will's connection. But I think it's really that they're not having to follow these COVID protocols and be on video screens from different places. And it just has made it much more emotional and much more powerful with these interviews. And I think it's been wonderful. And like I said, it's made the Ready Room, I think, a must-watch show this season.
Agreed. And a couple of things they touched on too, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but they talked with the Star Trek stunt coordinator, and they were talking about the behind the scenes look of what went into creating some of the incredible stunts in Star Trek Picard's season here. And of course, they were showing the stuff that we've seen before. And Michelle Hurd was talking about how she's this professional actress that has been working for so many years, and she's been waiting for the moment to do some fighting and some action. And they were talking, the stunt coordinator was talking highly about her and her commitment to it, and working with Michael Dorn and the rest of the crew. It was really, really cool. But the best part of that, though, was seeing Michelle Hurd get so giddy, having to actually do some action. Kyle, your thoughts?
I thought it was very cool that they covered that, talking about when they talk about Michael Dorn having to do with these stunts for years, and how Michelle Hurd just went in and actually surprised everybody at how good she was at it and her commitment level to it. And it's getting these little behind the scenes things, but you're not just getting the stunt coordinator talk, you're getting the actor's perspective as well. And it's so well balanced, and it's a behind the scenes look at Picard and really of Trek that we haven't been able to truly have because of everything with COVID, and now we're getting it, and it's energizing in a way to see these things.
Definitely. So, Amy, make sure you check this out. There's also a great thing with Ed Speleers, what it's like to be Jack Crusher. They don't give any spoilers away, of course, of what we're gonna see, though. But it was really nice to see him dive into the role, and his moments of meeting these people for the first time was really cool. Kyle, do you have something else?
Just on the Ed Speleers thing, two things. One, another great story about how he gets when he first found out he got the part and everything, the hoops they had to jump through to get him and his family here on visas for that.
Yeah.
But not only with Ed Speleers, but I'm going to go back to Todd too. It is so cool.
Go back to who? I'm sorry?
Todd Stashwick too. Both him
Stashwick,
and Ed.
Yeah. Okay.
Stashwick.
Gotcha.
It is so cool to have people who are such Trek fans and who grew up with Trek, and we're getting that generation now where they're old enough to be part of these shows. And it's great. It's great to have that energy. And you can even see it in their performances a little bit, where they have this little extra bounce in their performance. Like, they're trying to hold it in, but it's giving them that little bit of extra energy in their performance too. And it's just really cool to watch.
Yeah. Great point. Okay, guys, before we close things out here and get a little peek in the next episode, of course, we've been discussing Star Trek Picard Imposter, Season 3, Episode 5. I just want to get your final thoughts on this episode. Amy, it's so good to have you back here. Your final thoughts on this episode.
Oh, goodness. It was very exciting. Every scene, I was captivated. And sort of the themes that I've mentioned here already, like that theme of sacrifice. And especially when Worf's like, your enemy will reveal its weakness, and he's like, well, he talked about sacrifice. So, and we see then Worf's sacrifice, and then we see Rose sacrifice. So that I feel was the theme going into this episode. And there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but they just are doing such a good job of bringing in the fan service, which is a good thing because we all love it.
Yes.
Bringing in these characters to get us to know who is Picard right now. And I'm just going to say it. I need my Troy. So we need to get her in, and she's not going to be the complaining wife or crazy mother like Loxana. She's going to do something important and critical and repair the relationship there so we can have the Troys all together again.
I would love to see that. Imzadi back. Kyle, your final thoughts on Imposter?
So much going on, so much intrigue going on. I'm really excited for we're at the halfway point now of the season, final season of Picard. I don't want it to end. I'm really excited. I have a little bit of concern that maybe we're getting to a little bit of a discovery thing where we're going to have a lot to wrap up in a short period of time, but I trust the guys over at the Picard writers room to get it right. And I'm excited because I have a feeling we're not too far off from a certain Mr. LaForge finally joining the reunion. And I'm really, really excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this episode for me, I just like Ro Laren, man. Ro freaking Laren. I was so happy to see her back. And when I go back and rewatch, TNG, I'll cherry pick some episodes. I always pick Ro episodes. And I know that when I go back and watch these episodes and I see her for the first time, knowing what's now going to happen, I'm going to be happy with that. That she came back, she sacrificed herself for the bigger picture, and that we got ties to the earring, to Guinan, all that. And I'm gonna look a little extra fondly on these episodes, and of her and these relationships, and know that it came full circle for her. And thank you, Michelle Forbes, for coming back. It was short and sweet, but I appreciate that so much. So yeah, Kyle.
I was just gonna say, Kevin, when you say Ro Laren, you kind of say it like you're that guy in high school who had that super crush on the girl, but it never quite just happened.
You're absolutely right. I crushed on Ro Laren. I'll be the first person to say. I did. I was a big fan of Michelle Forbes, and she there was parts of her as being an outsider too that I really, really related to. Being a little moody at times when I was a kid in high school. I just get it. And her being in that situation of, she had done something bad and everyone knew about it, and we're looking at her differently, looking over their shoulders. I can relate to that, so, and I found her quite attractive. So yes, it's true. I was crushing on her. All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's check out that Orb of Prophecy. So we got a little peek into the next episode called Bounty here. And I guess we're going to finally see Worf and Picard together again, as well as a couple other things. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be nice to see these guys in this room. I don't know if this is an actual screenshot from the episode, but I did find it under Bounty, so I just threw it up here anyway. Man, does Worf look cool in his outfit? Oh my God. Michael Dorn just killing it as always. Amy, do you have any predictions in the next episode? Because they're heading back somewhere, I guess, but now there's like changelings everywhere, so I don't know.
Yeah, and the question is, did Jack kill all the changelings that are on the Titan, or are there still more that Jack's going to find, or is he the last one? Do we have a pure crew to go out and find this? Are we going to hear about Vedic again? Like, because she's still out there in the, and we need to see Geordi. Come on. So the Daystrom, there's got to be something there with the AI technology, because now they have the controller thing that they got from Kryn. So is Geordi going to get in there somehow? Because we have a Geordi connection to Daystrom, but this is the Daystrom station, not the Daystrom Institute in Japan. So I don't know.
Well, we did get a tease from the Ready Room that next week's guest will have LeVar Burton and his daughter and stuff. So we are going to get a little tease. And so, we got to get Geordi in the next episode. And it's going to be really cool. And I love the Daystrom connection you just brought up, Amy, because I'm sure something like that's going to happen. Kyle, what about you? You have any predictions?
I think we do get Geordi and his daughter. I think we get our first hints of Brent Spiner coming back as well. And I think by the end of the episode, I think we're also going to find out the Daystrom station was actually built from all those AIs that they were holding captive in lower decks.
all the evil AI computers.
Yes.
We can't leave well enough alone. It's not in our nature. So
all right, guys, let's go ahead and let's get in some contact information here. All right, guys, this is the Union Federation podcast. Here hanging out too with the BQN. Make sure you check out the BQN. A lot of fun stuff going over there. Amy, let's start with you. What's going on over the BQN? You guys got anything new coming up? And I love it. You guys are going live as well. I love getting the notifications from subscribing to the YouTube channel. It's awesome.
Yeah, so please check us out. We have history with the Zilogis doing their quick little tidbits. They're so fun. Infinite Diversity is also covering PICARD. We have Galaxy Class covering PICARD. Union Fed is, of course, being dropped over there. So you can find us both places. But do you want me to do my contact info too?
Yeah,
absolutely. We got to know where we can find only proper counseling. Come on, Amy.
Yes.
Yes. So find us there at BQN Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, BQN Collective. Me personally, I'm on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and in our Facebook group, Union Federation.
Awesome. And Kyle, where can we find you on the Fandom Podcast Network? Right over here.
Well, you can find me all over the place talking about it, whether it's on shows here on our YouTube channel or on our podcast side. You can find me on my new Twitter handle at RezagoonExpert. Seriously, you can find me on Twitter.
I'm just saying, Kyle, you might want to go ahead and get that now, because that's a pretty good Twitter handle.
It is.
I'm sure it can detract a certain kind of element too, but we won't go there.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW and on Instagram at AKyleFan.
Awesome. And please check out, we're doing Culture Clash live on Friday nights for the Mandalorian run. We're having Mando watch there. We're having some guests on there too. We just did a Last of Us shout out with John Mosby. With his articles as well, and that was a fun show to talk about. And we also got Time Warp out right now. We're talking about Time Warp 1983, all the movies and pop culture of 1983. So make sure you check that out. We got a bunch of other shows coming up too, some Couch Potato Theaters. My name is Kevin. Of course, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix, and of course on Facebook. And so make sure you check us out. And please stay tuned to the Fandom Podcast Network for more Union Federation, as we're going to continue with the Star Trek PICARD. Amy, it was so good to have you on again. Looking forward to seeing you next time. I'm glad you're back.
Thank you. So fun to be back.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, hailing frequencies are now closed.